you are sleeping on either of these giants that are about to genuinely explode, you could be left behind. I am challenged to pick one. We're going to be comparing Ethereum and Solana. They both have quite the foothold in their respective industries. Yes, they are both layer ones. They offer dramatically different benefits to a developer, which kind of puts them in their own slice. Which one would I choose? Assuming I had to allocate it 100% into one of them, which is a tough decision. And as I go through the data and try to come to that decision, hopefully you can learn something along the way. I would call Ethereum like that boomer dad. He is firm, boring, and in his resolve. Been doing it the way he's been doing it 60 years, pretty set in his ways, and it is more conservative. And then you have the Solana is kind of like the new sexy thing, like a Gen Xer parent, if you will, or a millennial. They definitely have different cultures, different tech, and they build for different things. I think the first thing to analyze is the financial opportunity. We have Solana. The first few things you want to look at are these little boxes right here. CoinMarketCap is the Yahoo Finance of crypto, and they do a great job of bringing some of the most important data for an investor right to the forefront. You can see here, max supply infinite means this is an inflationary tokenomic model. That means they can make as much Solana as they please, they being the foundation or whoever governs the network. Fully diluted valuation means what the market cap would be if every single token was circulated. So what I like is that the FDV and the market cap are very close. There's only about 7 billion Solana that is held by the foundation, insiders, founders, VCs. I don't like seeing a big difference between the two because that usually means there's a lot of insiders just holding a bag waiting to dump on retail the second you guys invest. And then the volume, I like it being at least in the same denominator as the market cap. Like if you got 50 billion, I would expect a bill of volume. If this was 10 million on this market cap, I would be very worried. And then you can do quick math to see how much SOL is actually locked up. This is total circulating, whatever the percent difference of this is, times it by that, you'll have what's remaining. So it's probably right around 600 million total and 40 million is locked up. The rest is circulating. So the tokenomics are decent. I look for deflationary tokenomic models. The network activity of Solana had me entering it very, very cheap. I started buying it right down here, believe it or not. My fund got in 20 and 30s right here. In general, the network activity is what really got me into Solana, especially when it was trading much, much cheaper. Now, sometimes down here, you can have some more data. I look at this as almost like SocialFi or, retail, DeFi, NFTs, meme coins. That's really where I've found Solana to shine. And they really are the meme coin casino, if you will. The NFTs, I feel like have died in general. Sometimes down here, by the way, if you scroll, there's token unlock schedules, but looks like they don't have that, which is totally fine. So Solana's tokenomic model makes sense. There's a lot of upside here, I think. We have Ethereum at 400 billion. Solana's at 90 billion. So there's more upside. It's like halfway down from its peak price. It's hit close to 300. It's trading at 140. Just to return to all-time highs, you're talking about a 2x, and I think it could easily get much higher, in my opinion. Let's look at Ethereum's tokenomic model. Same deal, inflationary. Although they are really, they switched to proof of stake. They're really working on this. They want it to be deflationary. They have almost identical tokenomic models, except that this is 100%, meaning all of the ETH that has come out is circulated, which is ideal. And honestly, there's probably less growth here if you just look at the price difference. I mean, it's never touched 6K. So, I mean, it's actually held up a little more stable. It's not down 50%. It's down maybe 30%. So in the short to midterm, there is less upside than Solana, but long term, I think they both can still grow. Like this could easily be a couple trillion, in my opinion. Bitcoin's already crushed it, and Ethereum does a lot more than Bitcoin does. So I could easily see this hitting hundreds of billions and this hitting trillions in the next couple of years. Now let's get into the actual technicals of the networks, which is actually how I go long early on some of these protocols, is I look at the networks. And it's all predicated on this thesis that if there are more builders, so more developers, more adoption at the base layer of a network, there is a higher probability that one of them will build something that brings users, which increases network activity. And what do developers want? They want users. So it's this cycle of network effect. More developers, more apps, more users, more developers. So I look for this network effect, this flywheel, if you will. And honestly, both of them have it. These these metrics right here are really important and telling. So you have almost double the amount of active addresses, even though it's about 25% the size of Ethereum. Way more transactions, 50 times more transactions on Solana. And it's made roughly 4 times as much money. And honestly, Solana was multiples better than Ethereum years ago. And it was at 5-6 billion market cap. You can see they're making more money with less fees too. Now I feel like just these 4 things right here, we need to really touch on. The key difference between Ethereum and Solana is how they were built. Solana, they built it to be fast. Decentralization is not like their key thing they're going for. That's Ethereum's. Now there's pros and cons to being decentralized and more centralized in a blockchain. More centralized means, yeah, you're going to be faster, but you're less secure. However, you're still way more secure than CrowdStrike, Amazon, Target, like basically one company owning the entire stack, because we've seen these hacks destroy networks just from one point of failure. So even though Solana has much fewer nodes and like computers that essentially verify the network and keep it secure, it doesn't really matter because it is a lot more secure and it is a lot faster than, you know, what people are accustomed to already. So all of that means that you're going to have different use cases from a development standpoint for both networks. The best analogy I can give you guys is if you were going to, let's say, deposit your paycheck every 2 weeks, are you going to hire an armored car and, you know, a security detail to get that to the bank? No. But if you were transporting $1 billion of gold, right? That's a little different. Different transactions have different security levels, and we make those decisions every day. You're not going to ask for an advisor to handle a $20 Venmo payment. You know, Ethereum is more about the institutions. It's more about the big boys that care about security, because Ethereum speed, 30-second settlement time, that is really effective. More effective than what they're used to. They're used to waiting days, if not weeks, for settlement, and Ethereum does it in 30 seconds. So it's a order of magnitude better performance, and it is 10 times more secure than Solana, which Solana is 10 times more secure than what they're currently doing. So Ethereum really has a foothold in that institutional sector. And then you have Solana that is more retail, the more casual transactions, if you will. And you can see that show up in their network activity. That also shows up in these bottom 3 right here. You have stable coins. Ethereum literally has 12 times as much stable coins and twice as much of DEX volume, which is interesting. This is institutions. So when I go look at RWA.xyz, it follows real world assets. And you look at all of the real world assets that are being moved on chain right now, including stablecoins, which the majority of it is stablecoins. Stablecoins are real world assets because it's cash being moved on chain. So you have Ethereum all the way up here with 60% market share, which again are institutions. And then you have Solana here with only about 1 billion compared to the 12. That's excluding stablecoins. And then when you look at the actual stablecoin volume, 182 out of 300. So they have more than 60. Yeah, they have around 60% of all stablecoins. And then down here, they're basically reaffirming all of what I had just said. The consensus, how they built it, the scalability and throughput, 30 transactions per second on Ethereum, you know, a theoretical capacity of 65,000, but they really do hum around 2,000 transactions per second on Solana. Now, I thought this was a much better table to show you the actual, I'll just call it those design decisions we discussed. This is the result of those decisions. So like the output that those decisions really affect. And as you can see, Solana is newer. Here's the TPS. The transaction fees are dramatically different. Settle block times, 0.4 seconds, 12 seconds, monolithic versus modular. These are all of the different decisions that they had made. Now, since they're more centralized, I mean, you can look at that. There's a few thousand Solana validators, and there's over 1 million on Ethereum. And then you can see this largest and most mature, the old boomer dad, you know, for the developer ecosystem. But this is absolutely growing like a weed. But you can see here that they really built different things. And since you have different, I'll just call it adopters, people that are using the technology, they really do attack 2 different sectors. Same tokenomics, different technicals, and they both have a place because they are in the top 5 largest blockchain networks in the world. You don't need to have the fastest network. The most secure network is actually pretty exciting for the right kind of buyer. And then I thought I'd break down the actual ecosystems, and some of you might be surprised. As you can see, Solana is right above Ethereum in fees. So literally Tron, then Solana, then Ethereum. We have Solana being the second most capital efficient network. Tron definitely the first. And then you got BNB right behind Ethereum. So when I'm comparing Solana and Ethereum, I'm looking at them as businesses now. And I'm seeing that Solana actually has, since it's much smaller, less, I would just say, developers, less time in the market, and it's making more money than Ethereum, and it's costing users less. I really see Solana kind of winning here. And then when we look at DeFi, though, I thought this was very interesting. You have Radium, Uniswap. These two are Ethereum. And then you have PancakeSwap. This is Binance. And then you have Pump.Fund, which is Solana. So in terms of DeFi volume, you have almost 2 billion on Ethereum, and then you have 1 billion on Binance with only 500 million on Solana. So DeFi really isn't choosing Solana that much. They're staying on Ethereum. And I think that also has a lot to do with just the time in the market and familiarity with all of the things. Like, people are really comfortable with MetaMask, right? Then to get on Solana, you need a different Solana wallet. And there's some barriers to entry there. And there's a lot more users on Ethereum, which is where builders will go. So Ethereum has a big advantage here in the idea that, you know, if we're going to be building apps that people love, again, 12-second, 30-second is still way better than waiting 2 days for a Venmo transaction. So we could see Ethereum really pull forward in the DeFi space. And then also when you have lending, which is trillions and trillions of dollars of a market size here, you have Ethereum absolutely crushing it. Morpho does both Solana and Ethereum, and then Aave is purely the bank of Ethereum. And you can see here, Ethereum is the clear winner for lending as well. And this just further supports my position that Ethereum is the institutional choice. It just is. They have more than half of the stablecoins. They have more than half of DeFi lending. As you go down the list, it's crazy the amount of mind share and market share they have in all of these vertical slices. But on the other hand, we have Solana here that is multiples, leagues ahead of Ethereum in certain metrics, which shows, in my opinion, retail. Retail is not building or issuing stablecoins. They're not building banks. They're not doing that. What they're doing is putting bets on if Maduro is going to get captured. They're using the predictive markets. They're doing sports betting, and they're gambling on meme coins, and, you know, they're just being reckless. It's kind of Solana's little niche for now. And there's actual real precedent for Solana to break into real world assets, but different kinds. It's still retail focused. One of the things that Anatoly, the founder of Solana, really wanted to do is have information travel at the speed of light. And his vision for Solana was basically the NASDAQ, the NYSE, stock exchanges being on chain. And Solana was the network chosen for the very first tokenized stock of Galaxy. They actually put their shares onto Solana. That's where that billion or so RWA.xyz site shows. So you have people tokenizing assets on Solana, but that's because retail's there. And part of a public company's job is to get shares into retail's hands. And then they can use those shares to finance their business and do a lot of different stuff, add liquidity, expand their business. There's tons of benefits to it. We have Solana kind of inching in there, but Ethereum really is the giant there. And after all of this, if I had to choose between Ethereum and Solana, I would separate my decision into two buckets. If my goal was to make more money in a short period of time, I think Solana's the clear winner. If my goal was to put money away and forget about it, literally just fall asleep, wake up 10 years from now, I would choose Ethereum. And I think that's really where you kind of have to analyze yourself, your position, your family's position, and make the kind of best decision. What kind of risk appetite do you have? I do feel like both have a long-term, these are my opinions, and I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I'm putting my money and my investors' money into both these assets. I think they're going to be here a long time, but Solana does have more of a risk profile than Ethereum. So it really would depend on my investing goals. Since I'm younger and I can roll the dice a little bit, I'm going to just pick Solana. I have to. And it makes me think I should have a little bit more weight in Solana personally. So I might go add to a position after this. I don't know. God bless. Take care of one another. And until next time, peace. I'll see you.